Welcome to another The Natural Medic Adventures. I'm your host, Craig the Natural Medic, and this week we have a special guest. We have Christine Reed, author of Alone in Wonderland. She is joining us here live today. Welcome, Christine. Thanks for joining us here. I know we had a little faux pas last time when you were ill. I was not feeling that well myself because I had a little spill on my last trip here that I did up in Arkansas. So I'm glad that you're here now. Give us a little elevator pitch about your background so everybody can listen. And while you're doing that, I'm going to invite people on the regular link.
Sure. Yeah, I'm a hiker and author. I got my start in the outdoors by discovering the Appalachian Trail and deciding that I wanted to do that with very little hiking experience. And my journey started there 7 years ago now. And since then, I've done more long distance backpacking, and I wrote Alone in Wonderland about my thru hike of the Wonderland Trail in Washington State. I just recently did the Colorado Trail, and I'm working on a second book with that kind of a focus.
Awesome. Yeah, I actually heard about you. I was listening to the Backpackers podcast, I think that's what it's called, with Jeremiah Stringer and John Kelly. That's who I kind of ran across you. Those guys are hilarious. One day I can aspire to be like them. But until then, I have some growing to do, and that's okay. Tell us, I have a copy of your book right here. I read it. I got it at the beginning of last month, right after I heard your podcast episode with them. And I read it in like record time. And in the past, I've been a reader, but I haven't really been a reader lately. You got me back into that. Tell us, in a nutshell, what's your book? What it's about?
Sure. It follows my thru hike on the Wonderland Trail. So it's definitely a hiking book, and it's got all the hiking book things. But I think on a deeper level, it's really a book about the human experience of kind of the independence that we're seeking in our 20s and trying to figure out who we are. For me, that journey really took me into the outdoors. It took me a lot of time spending time alone in the outdoors and really trying to find me without the distraction of other people around. The book is an exploration of that journey and the ideas around loneliness that can sometimes happen when you're trying to find independence. You accidentally find yourself in a really lonely place. That's what happened to me before I hiked the Wonderland Trail. After hiking, I talked to a lot of other hikers on the trail who seemed to be going through some of the same things that I was. I thought, I think this is really more of a universal story than I'm giving myself credit for. And I think that it deserves to be told.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed the narrative, and it was very, as Jeremiah said, it's a real book. The really good books out there, in my opinion, are the ones that you start reading and you can't put them down. I think your book definitely was that. So audience out there, if you're watching or listening, either live now or later on, definitely pick up a copy of her book, and we'll have links to that in the description once this is posted out on YouTube and on Buzzsprout for the audio version of the podcast. I've got a list of questions. I think you've already seen all these questions. So you call yourself a long-distance backpacker. Would you say that you're like a thru hiker? I know that's an odd term for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's weighted, I think. Honestly, the Wonderland Trail is the only long trail that I've thru hiked, and it's 93 miles. Some people would say that doesn't. And then I think just the term thru hiker, I feel like there's a lot of opinions about what you have to do to qualify for that term. I don't know. I don't know if I would use that for myself. I hiked 650 miles of the AT in 2015. Sure. And then this past trip on the Colorado Trail, we ended up skipping a small section because my friend got injured and we had to get her off the trail. I ended up getting back on in a different place. And to me, I still feel that I hiked the Colorado Trail. I don't feel that I have to put an asterisk next to it or qualify my experience in any way. But I know that there's debate on that subject. So I don't necessarily use the word thru hiker too often.
I got you. Yeah, I think there could be some kind of a maybe a stigma that goes with that, or some kind of labels or whatever, and people that maybe that are thru hikers or consider themselves a thru hiker, maybe just, I mean, the way it appears sometimes, I think, is they look down on people that are not, that section hike or that do shorter trails or things like that. That's really, I don't think that's doing anybody any favor, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think that's something. I think that the phrase, I know it's overused, hike your own hike, is used quite a bit. Everybody, that's the wonderful thing I think about hiking and backpacking, that you can do your own thing. If you wanted, I just did the Eagle Rock Loop up in Arkansas, which is supposedly I don't know if it's the hardest trail in Arkansas or if it's the hardest loop trail in Arkansas. I know it's the longest loop. And it was pretty challenging. It's like just under 30 miles. It's in the Washoe National Forest. Most of the hiking that I do, since I'm in East Texas, ends up in Arkansas because we just don't have the land with the state parks in Texas, at least in my part of Texas, that have the backpacking type miles that you can go.
Yeah.
But I hiked the entire trail, so am I a thru hiker now? So that's up for debate and up for, I guess, up into the own individual, person.
Yeah. I think part of the thru hiker mindset is about the idea that you've like moved your life onto the trail, in a sense that you've been out there long enough that you're like, I live here now in the woods. Backpacking is what I do. And I think you can achieve that in any range of numbers of miles. And to hike 2,000 miles or 2,186 miles or whatever the distance of the trail is this year is arbitrary in some sense, right? And even to say the trail changes every year, they add miles, they take miles away. So it doesn't devalue someone who hiked 10 years ago, their number of miles. That has changed now. Why does it matter if someone skipped 5 miles because there was a logistical thing and they needed to skip those 5 miles? I don't feel like that takes anything away from that person.
Absolutely. I think that's a very accurate view and way to look at it, because everybody's can choose their own adventure. Like I said, when they do, I grew up reading those kind of books. It shows my age. Where you get to the certain point in the book,
Turn
and
to
you
different
get to
pages.
Turn to this page if you go this way. Turn to this page, yeah. So a lot of times your hiking and your backpacking adventure can be just like that. If you want to do 3 miles that day and go camp that night, and then do 8 miles the next day, or you want to do 4 miles next, you can for the most part, you can custom tailor that to whatever you want to do.
Well, and as much as there's the Triple Crown and these kind of like achievements that people are knocking off their list in the hiking community, like at the end of the day, a backpacking experience, an outdoor experience, should be about something bigger than checking something off your list. So what is it that you're trying to achieve? What is it that you're trying to access within yourself? What are you hoping to experience or see in the world? All of those things, I think, are the real thru hiking experience and the real purpose of going out there. So yeah, to me, the number of miles or the did I step on every single section of trail is a lot less important than what you went out there to get, and did you get it or not?
Sure, I think, that's a good point. I think in this modern world of us living on our devices, and we're on Instagram or we're on Facebook or TikTok or whatever out there, and we're putting our voice or our story out there. You have to think about what is more important, the experience itself, or are we like, look at me? That's that fine line that you walk sometimes, I think.
Yeah. I was going to say the social media thing can be really hard because I think sharing story is so powerful, and there is so much to be gained from hearing other people's stories and sharing our stories. That's why I wrote the book. And social media has been a huge part of getting the book out to the world and having people find it. I'm incredibly grateful for that. And also, it can be a huge distraction. There are definitely negatives, but that's one of those, like, finding the right thing that works for you and finding balance in that and remembering what the point of it is, like reminding yourself every day why you're here.
That's the whole reason I started this podcast, was because I wanted to, share my experience that I've had over the years and try to help people that are, because let's face it, the last 2 years that we've had, 2020, 2021, that we just made it through, been, let's say, it hasn't been the greatest. A lot of things have happened. A lot of things we've come to realize, for better or for worse. And people are coming out to the outdoors in droves to get away from that whole, I have to stay in my domicile or my whatever. They're reaching out to get to the outdoors to get that connection to the outdoors themselves and to each other also. So I think that's like you said, that's the important stories to be told. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing here. That's why I invited you here, because I think people need to hear stories like yours. So in a nutshell, we're not going to do any spoilers, of course. I promise. A couple people asked me on Instagram, if they listen, will there be a spoiler for the book? And I said, I don't think so. I said, we're not planning on doing that because we don't want to spoil the surprise, because like I said, it's a great...
there's no surprise ending. I lived. I'm here.
Yeah, spoiler alert, she made it. She hiked the trail, she made it back, and then she's here to tell us about it. Yeah. But in a nutshell, what... I know you touched on this a little bit. What is your book kind of focusing on? Just go a little more in detail on that, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah. It's definitely focusing on relationships and relationship to self and relationship to identity and just who you are in the world and how you see yourself and how you are. Like, for me, it was about figuring out how to be the person that I wanted to be. And when I discovered long distance backpacking, I thought, I want to be a person that does that. I want to be a person that does hard things, that goes out, that enjoys nature, that can move their body. Like, these are all things I never did before. And so when I saw people talking about backpacking online, is how I figured out that it even existed. And I thought, wow, these people are so passionate. They're so excited about what they're doing. They're confident. They have the sense of independence that I didn't feel like I had in my early 20s. And they're just going off into the woods and doing this thing. They're not afraid. They're just doing the thing. And of course, come to realize that all of that is a facade of sorts. People ask me all the time, how are you not afraid to go out on your own and do these things alone? A big part of it for me is I am afraid. I'm not afraid. I just am experiencing fear, and then I'm going and doing the thing that I want to do and trying not to carry too much of that fear with me. But it's very much a conscious effort to not be afraid all the time. One of the things that I talk about in the book is ideas around safety and being a woman traveling alone, and the fears and the kind of back narrative that's happening in your head all the time when you're out there alone. And I think revealing that and showing this is what it's like to be inside a woman's head has been one of the most relatable things that I've had other women who also do cool stuff and are out doing stuff on their own, who I would look up to and think, wow, she's so confident and she's out there getting after it. They're coming to me saying, thank you so much for talking about the fear, because I feel that way too. And it's like hard to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's one thing I definitely picked up from your book, was just you're confident, but at the same time, what if is always in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Well, luckily for those that are listening out there or watching, I read an article the other day about the Appalachian Trail was a city. It would probably be one of the safest cities in the entire, United States.
Yeah, that is something I always tell people. Like, it's definitely not more dangerous out in the woods than it is in Denver, where I live.
Exactly. Denver and a lot of the other big cities out there, they're, experiencing growth pains, and they're full to the brim with people, and there's a lot of big city dangers out there. Really, a lot of people that could hurt you. You know what I mean? At any time. It's not. It doesn't happen as much as probably maybe the media or somebody says, but it's still, the danger is there, and I think it's a larger, more likely to happen in a city than it would be out on a trail.
Statistically speaking, for sure, yeah.
Statistically speaking, yes. There's the possibility, if you're on the certain parts of the Continental Divide or something, a grizzly bear could eat you in your sleep. Or you could, no spoiler here, but some of the things that I experienced on my last hike on the Eagle Rock Loop, there's a lot of water crossings. I know there were some of those you had to encounter as well on the Wonderland Trail. And it was kind of a new thing for me, because most of the trails that I've hiked have not been long enough, really, or they've been in a desert area. Like previously, my longest trail that I've hiked, which was back in the 90s. I know I'm aging myself again. Big Bend, out in West Texas, you don't really have much of an issue with water crossings out there. There is mountains and there is water, but it's not like it is in Arkansas or the southern U.S. or out in the Pacific Northwest, where there's just lots of water. And so there's dangers, but I think the connection that you get, as we keep coming back to, is far beyond what we've probably been used to. I think that's what attracts people to the whole activity of getting out there.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, what advice do you have for people that are solo traveling, whether they're male or female? What kind of advice would you give, like a quick?
I guess it's like awareness is the biggest thing that you can cultivate, and it's situational awareness, like being aware of who's around you, what's around you, what the features of the landscape are, then also getting information before you go. I think one of the conversations that's happening a lot right now around people going outdoors who've never been outdoors before because of COVID is that they don't know the rules. They don't know not to leave their orange peel on the ground. They don't know not to cut the switchbacks. They don't know a lot of things. And I think most of us can remember also not knowing those things. There's something to be said for, if you're just getting into it, get the information, do research online, go to the visitor center at the park and ask questions and say, I just don't know what I'm doing. Can you tell me what the rules are? And that's a big step to take in the right direction. And then if you are more experienced and you're just nervous about going alone, then the situational awareness and just knowing what hazards you might be encountering on this trail, and then also not overblowing them. There are places where there are black bears. There are black bears all over Colorado. I have never seen one. And I did the Colorado Trail. I was hiking and camping for 41 days, never saw a bear. And most of the people I talked to on the trail also never saw a bear. There was one place in Gut Hook where there was, like, someone had reported that a bear had taken food from a campsite. So we just didn't stay there. And it was a very easy avoidance. We didn't see any bears when we walked through, which I was bummed about. But it's just like being aware, talking to other hikers, saying, have you seen any wildlife? What's going on around here? And then not letting it keep you up at night. I'm definitely one of those people that lays in my tent, like, as soon as I lay down, and I'm just like, I can hear every noise that's on the Colorado Trail. I had a friend with me, and so every night we would lay down, and then I would go, did you hear that? And she's like, why are you doing this to me? I'm like, I just can't help it. She's like, I didn't hear anything, and now you're making me freaked out. There's a level of fear that's like, okay, I'm laying down, it's quiet now, I can hear noises, like I'm get a little spooked out. And then there's a level of fear that's going to keep you from doing the things that you want to do. And finding a place where it's like, you're being aware, you're paying attention. If something was out there, you would know. But at the same time, you're not so scared that you're not chasing the things that you love because you're worried there could be a bear out there.
Yeah, I think that speaks, volumes there. I mean, being aware of dangers that could be out there, being prepared for those. I mean, you're not going to be able to be prepared for everything. Having some awareness ahead of time is going to go a long way. So when it comes going back to writing your book, did you have a mentor there or somebody that kind of helped you guide you toward writing that book?
That's
or
an interesting
mentors?
question. I don't think I've been
Okay.
asked that before. I wouldn't say that I had any mentors. I did get connected with a few other writers throughout my process, just friends of friends, and I had a few great conversations. One author sat down with me and talked to me about what the process of getting published through a publisher was like, because she has had books published through a publisher. And that information allowed me to make the decision that I did not want to pursue being published by a publisher with this book. Then I had another author who also writes in the outdoor space. His name is Dustin Waite, and he wrote a book called External. I don't know if you've heard of it. He self-published, and he sat down with me and talked through the entire self-publishing process of just this is how I hired editors. This is how I found someone to do graphic design for my cover. This is how I put everything together. This is the printer that I used. And he really walked me through just what all the little tedious steps of creating a book were like. And I am incredibly grateful for that. Was a huge help to me. And that's something that I have now done for other people who are working on books, is sitting down and saying, okay, here's all the steps. Here's what that looks like. Here's how that goes. And just answering questions. So yeah, those two people definitely helped me more with the business side of deciding how I wanted to move forward with my book. But I did not have any writing mentors.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you had background already, and I think I remember from your interview with Jeremiah and John that you had been a good student and you had really enjoyed reading and that kind of thing. So you had a lot of background already in how to structure your narrative and things like that.
Sure.
Overall.
Yeah. I've been a big reader since before I started school. So I know what it takes to tell a good story.
There you go. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Sorry, I was darting around there. So, do you think you'll ever get on the Appalachian Trail again and try it?
I think I'd like to go back and do the 100-mile wilderness and summit Katahdin. I started at the southern terminus, and I hiked from Georgia into Virginia, and got off the trail in Virginia. And then I don't think I have any interest in finishing the trail. I think I would just like to go do the finish of the trail. I think it would be a sense of closure to stand on Katahdin and touch the sign and experience that. And I think the 100-mile wilderness would be fun, but I definitely don't think I need to go back out for the rest of the miles that I didn't finish.
Gotcha. I gotcha. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, when I started the podcast, that was kind of my goal, was to try to help get the experience out that people to get started. And if they wanted to do the Appalachian Trail, cool. If they wanted to do something shorter, cool. If they wanted to do something in their neighborhood, cool. I still have that on my target list down the road to do at least some of the Appalachian Trail. But as of right now, financially and just time-wise, it's too much of a commitment.
Yeah, I definitely...
podcast. Go ahead.
Yeah. I definitely don't think that I have a 6-month trail in me in the future. That it's the level of commitment. That's okay, I have to take 6 months off of everything in my life, which I think is an amazing experience. And I would encourage people to do it if they are at a place in their life where that makes sense. But I think, like I was saying before, I think you can get just as much of a personal experience and an amazing outdoor experience doing a shorter trail like the Colorado Trail, or the Arizona Trail is next on my list, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be a good one. So speaking of that, so talking about goal setting, we're at the beginning of the year. Everybody sets their New Year's resolutions, which is so cliche, I know. But I tried to do, instead of resolutions, I've tried to do this for the last couple of years since we lost my dad. My dad passed away in 2017, and I've like I'm not spoiling anything in your deal there, but like yourself, you have to when major events happen, you reflect a lot on yourself, and I see how we ended up, or how they whatever happened to them, and what expectations they had for themselves or for me or whatever. And so I try to set goals. So what is your, or what, if you have a process, you have a process for setting like your outdoor goals for the year or something like that, like trails or?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I definitely don't try to set my hiking goals in January because I hate winter and I don't want to hike in the winter. If I've set, like, I do get out a bit, and sometimes in Colorado it's really nice in the winter and you'll have really beautiful bluebird days, and I will try to get out. But I don't want to start off the year feeling like I'm behind or failing. And so if I set like a mileage goal or a number of hikes goal in January, and then I only do a few hikes between January and March, then I'll just feel behind. And so I try to set my hiking goals in the spring, like in April, May, I'll set goals for But in terms of how I choose what I'm interested in doing, it really is to do with what other people I know have done, what I've seen photos of that I think, wow, I'd really love to go see that. I love the desert, so I try to get down to Arizona every year. It's one of the reasons that Arizona Trail is on my list. And sometimes it's people saying, hey, my goal is blah, blah, blah this year. Do you want to like do that with me? And I like to be open to those kind of offers, because I know I do better when I have someone like keeping me accountable, and I like to be that person for someone else. A few years ago, I did rim to rim in the Grand Canyon with someone who I had met on the Wonderland Trail, and she just messaged me on Facebook and was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing rim to rim. Do you want to come? So I was like, yeah, sweet. I definitely wouldn't have done that year if I hadn't been asked. So I think I really like to be like loosey-goosey and keep it open so that I can say yes to things that come up.
Okay. That's a good way to do it. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah, for me, I after my dad passed, just short end here, I'm not going to get into a long story. But anyway, I started my own business, and so I'm an online retailer selling different things. And then I was like thinking, I guess about a year ago almost, when I started this podcast, I'd already had an idea for the YouTube, and so I just expanded that out into the podcast in addition to audio, doing video as well, like we're doing now. And I wanted to use it not only to encourage people to get out, I also wanted it to have, like you said, get the body involved and I'm doing a lot of sitting when I'm doing my online sales and stuff and working online. And so I needed to have some kind of release, because otherwise when you're working at home, you just work yourself all the hours. I'm sure you can relate to that. So I guess it was like, and then of course being in Texas in the summertime, it's hot.
Yep.
And so I started doing day hikes in local state parks about May of last year, and I just tried to do one every week, and didn't get back out at backpacking until October. I went to Caney Creek, which is just up the road from Eagle Rock Loop in the Ouachita National Forest. Did that one, and then I did Eagle Rock over Christmas break. So I'm planning on doubling my miles or so. I think I roughly counted up. I had somewhere between 150 to 200 miles, including backpacking miles. And I'm going to do a lot more trips. I've got some deals on there. Maybe we'll cover those a little bit later. But anyway, I don't want to talk too much about myself. We're talking about you because you're here. So are you planning on another book?
Yes, I'm working on it right now. And I'd really love to have it out by the end of 2022, but I don't know if that is possible. We'll see.
Sure. Can we know what it's about, or is it a secret, or what?
Yeah, so it's definitely going to be more focused on relationship to body and physicality. I was, after hiking the Wonderland Trail, I was diagnosed with a medical condition called POTS that affects my autonomic nervous system. And so when I hike, and it's funny because if you read Alone in Wonderland, you'll read me describing what my body feels like and how my heart is pounding and I'm out of breath and things are really hard. I had been a backpacker for a while before that. It wasn't like this was new for me. It turns out that a lot of those things that were going on with my body were because of this, some symptoms of this disorder. So now that I know what's going on in my body and I can see and understand a little bit, I wanted to hike the Colorado Trail to see if I could better manage my body, because I've always just really abused it when I go on trail and just pushed really hard and been really uncomfortable, and thought, I just kept thinking like, okay, if I do enough of this backpacking, I will get better at it. It will get easier. And it just hasn't. And I didn't understand why. And now that I understand why, I was like, okay, I want to like go hike again. And I want to just experience my body as it is and to understand what's going on and to give myself a little bit more grace and to push myself in a way that's like sustainable. And now that I understand what that means. So I really approached my time on the Colorado Trail really differently than I have in the past approached backpacking. And I found a new joy for being out there in a different way than I have in the past. And so I want to talk about, it's going to talk about fueling, hydration, really how to just listen to your body and to have that conversation be more of a two-way street. But it's going to be focused on the Colorado Trail. I will talk probably a little bit again about running, maybe a little bit about rock climbing if I can find a way to wedge it in. And just my development over time of my relationship with my body and understanding what it is to be married to this physical vessel as opposed to dragging it along.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely something that's going to be great for a lot of people, because I think a lot of people probably think about their own physical limitations or their health conditions or whatever. And like, I can't hike so-and-so trail because I've got diabetes, or I've got a heart condition, or I've got whatever.
Yeah.
So that'll be a good vessel, so to speak, or message, so to speak, for those type of people that they're feeling that in their psyche or their whatever, that just says, I can't get out there because of X, Y, Z. So that's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We already talked about whether you're a thru hiker or not. What about, are you in the ultralight camp? Do you consider yourself ultralight or lightweight, or what do you think?
Ooh, probably not. On the AT, I think I started with like 44 pounds-ish. I've definitely gotten lighter since then. I've replaced, I had a 3.5 pound tent. Now I have a like 1 pound, 11 ounce tent. And a few things like that I've been able to really cut pounds by purchasing more expensive gear. But I'm still carrying like the standard Osprey backpack. I carry a lot of food. And I carry a first aid kit, and I'm very afraid of being cold. That's my biggest fear. And so I do carry like, I have a down quilt and a merino like bag liner for my sleeping bags. So like that kit, even though I got a lighter sleeping bag, is like still just as heavy. And yeah. And then like in terms of clothes, I always have an extra few, probably more clothes than other people. And I like, man, kudos to people that are going to ultralight, because the suffering that I feel like I would experience if I didn't have the things that I feel like I need. We saw a guy on the Colorado Trail probably on our first day, and he was carrying this tiny little backpack, and my hiking partner said, "What's in that backpack?" She's like, "Tell me what you're carrying." And he's like, "Oh yeah," and he like pulled everything out, and he pulled out an empty, like basically empty stuff sack. And she's like, what's that? And he said, that's my clothes bag. And I was like, there's nothing in it. And he said, oh yeah, my down puffy is in there. And he had a stuff sack with a puffy in it. And he was wearing shorts. He had no pants. He had no extra layers. Like, he had on a button-up tech shirt and shorts, and all he was carrying extra was a puffy. And I was like, dude, that's
hardcore.
Intense. What do you do if it's actually cold?
Right.
And he's like, I just get in my sleeping bag.
You can't stay in there forever. That's my thing. Let's hear that answer. It's like, well, if all else fails, you could just set up your tent, get in your sleeping bag, and you'll be warm. We're like, well, what if you have to move on to the next place? You can't just stay there forever.
That's like a survival solution. Yeah, if a blizzard comes, you can stay in your sleeping bag for a day. But yeah, what do you do what if your puffy gets wet? What if, I don't know. Yeah. It stressed me out to see that was his setup. And I was like, I hope you're okay out there, dude.
Yeah. It brings to mind like Donner Party kind of thing, like, or if you haven't seen it, you, Christine, or anybody listening in the audience, by the creators of South Park, is called Cannibal the Musical. And it's a musical version of the Donner Party event. So it was interesting. It was pre-South Park, so it was
That sounds funny.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's hilarious. Definitely check it out. I don't know if it's on Netflix or whatever, but it's out there somewhere. But I'm the same way. When I did my last, I guess my last before this one, on Caney Creek, I had, like, when I was married back in 2000, I want to say 2011, something like that. My wife and I, at the time, we were all, excited about going backpacking. We were going to go to Arkansas, and we bought these decent packs. They weren't the best packs. They were like on that REI outlet, I think. I don't remember what her brand was, but the one I have, and I still have it, is a Lafuma, which is not a brand that is very familiar to a lot of people, because I've gone into REI a couple of times to have it fitted to me, because it has adjustable. The nice thing about it has adjustable suspension. So it fits me. I'm 6'2", about 220, so I'm not a small guy, but I'm not a huge. Maybe a little bit bigger than average. But as far as the suspension, the nice thing about this pack is it's adjustable. And you can adjust it to your body, your torso size. But I go in there and the people are like, well, what is this? Oh, Lafuma. I've never even heard of this. I was like, REI sold this like 10 years ago. And they're like, I was like in middle school 10 years ago. So I was just in REI this past weekend when I was in Fort Worth, and I bought a REI. I bought the Flash 55, I believe is what it is. And so I wanted a certain color, though they didn't have it, so it's going to be here today. It's coming to the house today.
Nice.
So I'm excited about that. Because the Lafuma is a great pack. It's got a lot of nice features, but it's like a 60 plus a 10-liter brain, so it's a 70-liter. It's big. And so the bigger the pack, I think, the more you're apt to put in it. I think that's what happened to me when I went to Caney Creek. Really, it's just an overnight trip. You park down. Ideally, you park at the bottom of the hill. You walk up the hill across Buckeye Mountain and make your way around back to the parking area. So it's like 10, 11 miles, something like that for the loop. And I had 6 pounds of food, and I had all kinds of crazy stuff in there because, and the pack itself being like a 10-year-old pack, it's even more robust than your Osprey.
The fabric is heavy, yeah.
Yeah, and it's got the metal frame, and it's unloaded. It's like 4 pounds, and I think I lost about 1.5 pounds getting that REI pack. That right there. But I've got next thing I got to work on is a tent and a sleeping bag. But I'm there. I'm getting there.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of men especially have those like 60-liter packs. And I'm like, unless you're doing technical rock climbing or winter backpacking, there is no reason to have a pack that big. Right. Or maybe if you were going to do 10 days without resupply or something, if you were going to do like a huge trip with no resupply. But at that point, why are you doing that? Because on the Colorado Trail, we had 3 sections that were 6 days between resupply. And I said, man, I don't know if I would sign up for a 6-day without resupply again, because it was hard.
Sure.
And the food, like, I eat a lot. I was like, this is too heavy. 3-4 days without resupply. That's the money spot.
Yeah. it's amazing whenever you get out there and you're like, your body just starts wanting that fuel. You're like, man, I could just eat.
Or just eat nonstop all day long. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that's the way, and that's really the way to do it, is keep yourself going. Because when I was just up on my trip at Eagle Rock over Christmas, it was warm. It was like in the 70s.
Yeah.
During the day. And so the first day I had my convertible pants, so I had my legs on, but the last 2 days I was like, screw it, I'm just going to go shorts.
Yeah.
And I did not regret that. But constantly the whole time I'm just dropping it down because I'm having fuel. Because that first day you're going up over about 6 ridges on the west side. And that took me out. I got there a little bit late. It took me a little bit longer than I anticipated to get across those. Because the Ouachita Mountains, I know you're somewhat familiar with those, being from Arkansas.
Yeah.
The ridges go east and west, so you go up over the top, down in the valley, up over the top, down the valley about 6 times. Nice. And it's not the Rockies, but if somebody coming from East Texas like myself, it was a little bit of a workout.
I'm going to have to look that up and see about doing that trail because it sounds fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really a great trail. Really a great trail. It's actually 3 trails that kind of share mileage. And lots of good scenery, lots of water crossings, lots of great campsites. So yeah, I definitely give you some more information about it later.
Yeah.
If you need it. Okay, another question. As far as your going through your day-to-day on the trail, do you keep a journal? Do you keep any kind of records? What happened that day? I mean, because you're a little bit different situation maybe than the average person, because you're using this to create things. You're writing a book. So do you?
Yeah. So on the Colorado Trail, I did keep a little notepad, and I just wrote down, like, oh, this happened or that happened, or my feet were feeling like that, or just whatever was happening in a very short form list by day. And I was doing that because I knew I would end up writing about this. But previous to that, I wasn't intending to write about the Wonderland Trail until I had finished it already. And so I didn't take notes on the Wonderland Trail. But I did start writing the book immediately after I finished hiking it, and it was only 11 days. So it was not too much for me to sit down and make an outline of everything that had happened, like once I was done with the trail. I carried a journal on the AT, but I don't think I wrote in it at all. It just I wasn't feeling the need to do that. And I've never been much of a journaler anyway. So for me to, at the end of the day, when I'm exhausted and I just want to stuff food in my face and lay down, like the last thing I want to do is write in a journal. Or at least was back then. And even on the Colorado Trail, when I was just keeping a notebook with a list of things, I still sometimes would go 2 or 3 days without writing in it and have to go back and be like, okay, what happened on Tuesday? Like, where were we? What was the thing? And I did also keep the Colorado Trail data book. They have a really small version of the guidebook that you can carry, and I carried that, and I marked everywhere that we camped in the data book, so I would be able to go back and reference it. Okay,
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I took one with me on Eagle Rock Loop. I did not write a single word. I even took, I think I told you, I took Slaughterhouse 5 with me because it was a small little thin novel. But I was doing so many miles. The first day I got up there, I got up there a little bit later than I anticipated, got on the trail about around 2 o'clock. And so I ended up night hiking to my first campsite and finished about 7:30. I was thinking, it's probably not the best to hike on these rocky trails at night.
Yeah.
When I could hurt myself. And so I just kind of did about 5 miles first day. The second day, I think I hiked a little bit after dark as well, but I ended up doing about 9 miles because it wasn't over the ridges so much. But I just didn't have any inklings to write down into the journal or read, because by the time I got to the campsite, I'm like, man, I'm hungry. I'm ready to eat some food and lay down and go to bed.
Yeah, I definitely read a lot on the Colorado Trail. We picked up books along the way. I think my first hiking partner and I, we both started with a book. And so then when we finished, we traded. And then we picked up books in towns from if they had a little free library, or if a lot of times the hiker hangout areas will have a bookshelf. And so we'd swap whatever we were carrying. So I did do a lot of reading, which was nice because I didn't really do that on the AT.
Gotcha. And I did see we actually are live on Facebook, which is great, but nobody.
Oh.
Thus, I don't know how that happened, and we have some person that gave us a heart. Yeah, but no questions that I see right now. So we'll just keep going a little bit longer on a few more questions for you, and then we'll wrap it up. Did you ever meet anyone on the trail that you were like, wow, this person is like a weirdo, or they're just not really trusting of them? We don't have to use names, but any of the trails that you've been on.
For sure. There's people everywhere that you just get like weird vibes off of, and you're like,
sure,
I'm going to not be near this person. So I think not on the Colorado Trail, because we hiked the opposite direction on the Colorado Trail that everybody else hikes. So we only met maybe 3 people going the same way we were. And so everybody else was like very much like, oh, hey, you're going that way. I'm going this way. What's up? What's your name? And that was the extent of most of our interactions, was just like saying hi and telling people where we were from.
Right.
So that's not enough to get uncomfortable. So not there. Definitely on the AT, like it's one of those places where you get all kinds, and there's always going to be people that you just don't jive with. And there were a few people that I like had hiked away from, or stayed and let them hike away from me. And I think that's usually your best bet on a long trail situation like that, is to just get a day away from the person, and then you may never see them again. Or it may be one of those things where you like keep running into them over and over again, which can be a nuisance. But as long as you're being safe and not camping alone and putting yourself in a potentially dangerous situation, I think a place like the AT is so crowded. There's so many people around. And if you are feeling uncomfortable, you just tell someone else, like, that person is making me feel uncomfortable. Then you can talk about it and not have it be like something, I don't know. I feel like when you're carrying that fear in yourself, it makes it bigger in some ways. And if you tell someone, then you can assuage some of that, and they can say, oh, I also think that person is weird. Or they can say, oh no, they're really nice, and I had a great conversation with them. And I think it helps to get someone else's interpretation of the situation, and also just to let someone know, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. I think sometimes that can help you just let go of it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and on that same remark, did you have people like saying in your Alone in Wonderland book that you just really like super connected with?
Yeah, absolutely.
Without spoilers, of course.
Yeah. Like I said, I ran rim to rim with someone I met on the Wonderland Trail. And we had a really great connection. And I think she's the only person I've talked to since then from the Wonderland Trail. But like the AT, I have several friends that I met there, one of whom is the person who started the Colorado Trail with me. In 2015, we met on the Appalachian Trail, and we probably hiked together for a week, 2 weeks, not a super long time, but we've kept in touch. And she lives in Boston, and I've moved all over the Southwest. And so she'll come here, and we like went and did a bunch of hikes in Zion and Grand Canyon together. And then I went up to Boston, and we drove up to Maine and hiked around in Acadia together. So we have been friends and done a bunch of hiking trips. And then she came out here and did the Colorado Trail. So it's been a great long relationship since we met on the AT. So I think you can definitely form like lifelong friendships doing long distance hiking.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think you hear a lot of stories about that. It's just I think overall, I think the hiking and backpacking community is a very welcoming, open arm type society. And I think that a lot of people accept a person for whatever they are, whatever they've experienced, whatever they will experience, and that kind of thing. And that's the great thing about this.
Yeah.
Just checking again. I still don't see any questions, so we'll go a few more minutes here, and I guess we'll wrap it up. Do you have any other creative projects you're working on besides writing? Anything else that you...
I'm not much of an artist. I do also have a side project where I write haiku. And I'm considering doing something bigger with that this year. But no, I definitely focus most of my energy on writing. And when you're doing something like writing a book, it's, I don't know, dangerous to split your attention in too many different directions if you ever want to finish a big project. I am also interested in doing more dancing this year, so I guess that's a creative outlet.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I've already mentioned my the podcast several times and YouTube and stuff like that. I'm just continuing to expand my whole deal. And as far as other outdoor activities, though, I've had a kayak since 2015 that I have yet to put in the water. Isn't that sad?
Nice.
When I was working as a paramedic, I reached my 1 year mark. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go to REI. I'm going to buy me a nice kayak. And just this life happens. So hopefully 2022 will be the year that I can put it. I have a lot of water around me. The town I live in is between two lakes with a river between them. So I have plenty of opportunities and places to go. I just haven't taken the time to do that. So that's hopefully one of the things that I'm going to try to do in the new year here.
Oh, I was going to say, when I lived in Arkansas, I was really interested in getting a kayak, but there's not as much opportunity to use stuff like that in Colorado. It's pretty dry.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of your places get nice stream flow in the springtime, but that gets pretty crazy. We usually use a friend of mine. We usually do a group like ski trip, usually in the spring. We'll come to Colorado and do a little week-long ski trip, but I don't think that's going to happen this year. But in the past we've done that, and then some of those times it's been like really snowy, so I can imagine what the snow melt would be after getting in some of those streams with a boat would be dangerous.
Yeah. Well, and also it's cold. It's really cold.
Yeah. And like right now, it's ideal hiking season here in the South, or I don't know if you consider Texas the South necessarily. I guess my part of Texas is the South. Yeah. In the eastern part. So it's ideal. Like, it's hard to go backpacking. I hate to sweat. I'm a sweater. And when it's 100 degrees, that's not comfortable for me to go out and backpack. And it's not happening. I'm not going to Big Bend in July, or Guadalupe Mountains for that matter, and sweating my butt off. Because it's just not comfortable. I'm going to go in the springtime or the fall and that kind of thing. So anybody out there that, I think being in the outdoors, I think is inspiring. I think it could be a spark in someone's life to create a budding artist of some type, a writer, a videographer, a podcaster, somebody that sculpts or draws pictures or whatever. Do you have any encouraging words for somebody that's an aspiring creator?
Yeah, I think the main thing to remember is that, like, your story matters, and that whatever format you want to share it in is going to speak to somebody, and that there is like room for more in this realm. I know it can feel like there are a gajillion books about hiking. Why would I want to write a book about hiking? Or there are a ton of podcasts about the outdoors. Like, why would I, like, who cares about my thing? Because there's already these other things. But I think if you bring yourself fully to it and are willing to reveal yourself as a flawed human being, then that is a story worth telling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's why it's not really related, but somewhat. Like, reality TV really has taken off in the last couple decades because people like that realism of that person is like me. That person has the same issues that I deal with, the same thoughts that I deal with, the same living situation or whatever. So I think that's great, because I think no matter what the story is, no matter what the medium, I think there's somebody out there that message can reach and can be inspired by. And so I think that's probably the biggest encouragement right there. How about one more question, then we'll wrap it up. So how do you make time for yourself? How do you de-stress? How do you chill, Christine? What is your favorite way to do?
I would say either hiking, running, rock climbing, like doing my outdoor activity things, or laying in bed reading and taking bubble baths. That's I like to lay down, or I like to be active outdoors when I'm not writing or working. Yeah. Okay.
Great. Good deal. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like I said earlier in the broadcast, having your own business, I'm pretty much a solopreneur. I do it all, and kind of expanding now to content creation. I have to take some time, and I think everybody needs to take some time. And I think one of the best places to get that time is to get out in nature and enjoy your surroundings. Hike, bike, rock climb, whatever it is you do and want to do. I think that's the greatest things.
Yeah, and especially, I was going to say with writing and social media and all of those things, like my job is very screen oriented. And so I spend a lot of time looking at my computer, looking at my phone, doing those things. And so getting outdoors is, I think, the best way to decompress from that. I don't want to relax watching TV because I'm like, I have looked at this screen long enough.
I agree with you. Yeah. We have a lot of screen time in our daily lives, unfortunately. That's just the nature of the world that we live in. So it's good to be able to decompress and get away from that. Okay, we have recorded just over an hour. See if we got any last minute questions here. I don't see any. I guess we will wrap it up. You'll hang around for just a minute, Christine. We'll debrief after the deal here, and I'll just wrap it up real quick. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching this week on the Natural Medic Adventures podcast. Again, we want to thank our guest, Christine Reed, for being here. She gave us a lot of insight this week. If this video or podcast gave you any value of any kind, please feel free to leave comments, send emails, all the good stuff. And we will see you next time, and see you out there on the trail. Take care.